On the line with us is former Congressman Joe Walsh, the host of White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts. He's formerly the representative for the 8th District of Illinois in the U.S. House, former presidential candidate, and the author of the book F Silence, calling Trump out for the cultish, moronic, authoritarian con man he is, that you can find over, wherever you can find fine books. His Twitter handle, Walsh Freedom. Joe, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we've talked, and I've been hearing that you have been warning America that the Republican assault against our democracy is not going to stop, and that we are not going to return to anything resembling the kind of semi-normalcy we had before the Trump presidency. You want to elaborate on that?
Hey, Tom, always good to be with you, my friend. Yeah, look, I've been on a tear lately because I wish I could wake Democrats and independents up to what I hear every day. You and I have talked before. Because I come from the mega cult, I still engage with mega people every day. I engage with the Republican Party base every day. And it's clear in speaking to them that Trump and Trumpism, look, they really do want to do away with democracy. Let's just say that. They really do want an authoritarian in the White House. And I just wish that Democrats, Tom, could hear what I hear every day from these people.
So what do you hear that you want Democrats to hear?
That if Republicans do get in charge again, if there's a Republican president in the White House again, their voters, that Republicans' voters, want that president to do away with democracy, to have unlimited powers, to do whatever they want him to do. That's scary.
Yeah, it is. To what extent do you think, I mean, there's always been this pseudo or neo-fascist Christian, white Christian supremacist streak in America. I mean, a small number of people who want basically theocracy, and they're driven by the idea of, it's the end times and we need to have Armageddon, and Israel has to blow up and then Jesus will return and all this stuff. And they've never embraced the idea of democracy, but it's always been considered a fringe. To what extent is this anti-small d democratic, anti-democracy movement within the GOP animated by that white Christian nationalist group, as opposed to being animated by just, good old boys who the kind of people who basically were following Hitler? In the period from, say, 1934 to 1938?
Hey, Tom, I think it's primarily driven by this authoritarian impulse that has always been in my former political party. And when I was in Congress 8 to 10 years ago, I knew it was there, but it was more, at least publicly, it was more fringe. The election of Trump, a pseudo-authoritarian, brought it out, brought this impulse out to the point, Tom, where it's not it's not fringe anymore. It's very much mainstream. And I think it primarily comes from the fact that these Republican voters want either a Christian theocracy or they want 1954 America back, whatever that is in their head.
Where white people are in charge, basically, of everything.
Tom, that's only part of it, though. That's only part of it. Mm-hmm. But they no longer believe that democracy can give them that America back. They've given up on democracy.
Well, I understand. I think it's really important to keep in mind, Joe, that the Supreme Court really took an axe to our democracy in a series of decisions that culminated with Citizens United in 2010, where they legalized political bribery. I mean, before the Supreme Court in 76, in the Buckley case, recognized this new thing. Prior to that, giving money to politicians and getting votes for it in exchange was considered bribery and corruption. And politicians went to jail for that. In 76, it was lightly legalized, and the Supreme Court said, no, that money is actually free speech. It's an expression of speech. And as I said, they blew this wide open in 2010 with Citizens United. And now, anytime something that the people really want comes forward, like, hey, let's strengthen Social Security, let's strengthen Medicare, let's put in some consumer protections, let's break up some of these big monopolies so we can get decent prices for, you know, internet service or airline fares or whatever, or drug prices. Whenever anybody comes forward and says, let's do that, one of the giant monopolists or some, you know, big, powerful influencer comes in and says, well, in the case right now, the Inflation Reduction Act, they go to Kirsten Sinema, the Wall Street guys, and say, you know, no, we want to continue paying half the income tax that everybody else pays. Just a small handful of little New York billionaires. And Kirsten Sinema is going to go to the mat for them because they're going to pour $1 million into her pocket or whatever it is, you know. And well, I get it. You look at that and you go, that's not democracy.
Well, Thom, Kirsten Sinema may go to the mat for them, but most Republican and truthfully, most Democratic senators are probably quietly with Kirsten Sinema on that particular issue.
My point.
But look.
Because they're all getting money from these people. I mean, it seems to me that this corruption of democracy by our Supreme Court is the kernel at the core of this whole thing. It's the original cancer that has now metastasized in all these different directions. And because, I mean, one of the things I pointed out in my rant this morning, today, 61% of Americans make so little money that they're no longer in the middle class and they no longer pay income taxes. When Ronald Reagan came into office in 1981, it was 18% of Americans who were not in the middle class and therefore did not pay income taxes. It's, you know, when Mitt Romney was running in 2012, it was up to 47%. Now it's at 61%. Reaganomics, the destruction of our labor unions, the consolidation of these massive corporations, the loss of the power of the average worker is wiping Americans out, and they know it. And so when Trump comes along and says, hey, it's a swamp, and I'm going to drain it, and I'm going to stand up for you guys, and I'm going to get you good pay, of course they're going to say, okay, sir, whatever you want, sir.
Thom, you'll have to have me on one time, and you and I can get into a pretty detailed economic debate because we disagree. I mean, look, I don't support Trump. I left the Republican Party, but I'm still a free market conservative. You and I could have a very interesting debate about all of that. It's not just economics, though, with these Republican voters. It's not. Look what Ron DeSantis is doing down in Florida. He's using the power of government to shut up individuals and to shut up businesses.
Yeah, he just did this with this Hillsborough prosecutor who
they
refused,
want that.
He said he wouldn't prosecute abortion
too. That's what they want. That's what Republican voters want. They want a strong man to just shut up people who disagree with them.
So if you disagree with me that the reason why they want that is because the American middle class for 40 years has been disintegrating, what is it? Is it that they're seeing more black faces on television? Is it that they don't want gay people to be out? I mean, is it these so-called culture issue stuff that is making them crazy? I mean, why would Republicans repudiate democracy?
Yeah. Thom, it's everything from the economic to the social. It's the guy in the small town whose plant left 9-10 years ago. He lost his job, and we got black people and brown people coming over the border, and you can't say Merry Christmas anymore. And there are 64 different genders now in America. It's all of it, Thom. It's all of it. And it's ripe for a demagogue to pick at.
Yeah, and it appears that you and I are in a consensus that demagogue is probably going to be Ron DeSantis and not Donald Trump. But what happens if oh, okay, well, go ahead, Joe.
No.
And I'm also wondering what you think will happen if the DOJ decides to try to prosecute Trump. We've got about a minute and a half here before we hit a hard break.
Well, I'll be quick, Thom, and thanks. I always love being on with you. This is Trump's party. And Donald Trump is still the overwhelming favorite to be the nominee. And I still believe if Trump runs, I don't know that anybody of any consequence on the Republican side will run against him. If Trump is indicted, it doesn't matter. If Trump is in jail, it matters.
So do you think the goal of, but how will the maggots respond to Trump being put in jail?
I think with an indictment and or a conviction, I think Trump's most hardcore supporters will get ugly and violent, and that will only enhance a lot of violence again from that extreme in this country again. I hear that every day too, Tom.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Joe Walsh, former U.S. Congressman from Florida's 8th District, former Republican. Joe, I'm going to ask Sean to book you back, and we can just have a specific debate about economics.
Citizens United. Let's you and I go at it about Citizens United.
All right.
I'd love that.
We can do that. All right. Joe Walsh.
Thank you, sir.
And check out Joe's book, F Silence, you know, the F word there, Calling Trump Out for Cultish, Moronic, Authoritarian Con Man, and Joe's White Flag podcast.